What is up, YouTube? Welcome back. I apologize. I've been gone for so long. I'm extremely sick. I was supposed to have this video out for you guys days ago, like Tuesday or whatever. But I've been super, super, super sick, so I haven't been able to actually play any video games or finish uploading my video and doing the recordings that I wanted to do. So I apologize for the long wait, but I'm finally back. I'm feeling a little bit better. I finally got my voice back. I can kind of speak now. I couldn't speak before, which is why I couldn't do a recording. Um, but I want to talk about Hailey and help people in the community understand Hailey, why she's awesome, why she's good, but more importantly, how to properly build Hailey and give you the best build possible. And I really think before I left, I spent a lot of time with her and that I have a full understanding of how she works. So I'm not going to waste your time. Let's jump into the video and let's talk about it. So right off the jump, we're using Piercing Light for Hailey. And the reason why we're going to use Piercing Light is because Piercing Light has the highest base damage in the game that I could potentially find. Um, I did look into rocket launchers, and I still kind of do want to dabble with the rocket launchers because I feel like there's like probably some like weird gimmick with a rocket, right? That would probably help me out. Also, I just feel like rockets, like some modules, just snapshot better to certain things. Like strengthen first shot, for example, I feel like works more consistently on a rocket launcher than it does on a sniper rifle. Um, that's just my opinion. I gotta do more testing on that, so don't quote me there. But let's talk about piercing light further and the importance of it other than the high base damage. I want to talk about substats and give you every little piece of information that you mainly need to know. So the important substat roles that you're going to want on your piercing light, I don't have my full god tier set up yet. Like I said, I've been really sick, and for the longest time since I got piercing light, I just had horrible rolls. So I don't have perfect rolls on my piercing light right now. But the roles that you're going to want to look for 100% for piercing light in general use, but also more importantly for Hailey, is going to be crit damage, weak point damage, firearm attack, and attack to colossus. That is your ideal setup. I'll put it on screen at some point when I'm doing the editing, so that way, just in case you want to see it, I'll have it listed there. And then if you guys also want, in the comment section too, of the YouTube, not comment section, in the bio or comment section, whatever, I'll also post the recommended substats in order that you would want to prioritize on your weapons. Now you have a callback. Uh, so the reason why you want crit damage, weak point damage, firearm attack, and attack to Colossus, ideally for the piercing light on Hailey, is because you want to increase her overall raw damage. And those will also just give you the best damage numbers you can possibly expect or want from piercing light. I'm sorry. Like I said, I'm sick. Please forgive me if I hiccup, pause, and all that stuff like that. I'm working on it. I'm getting better. Um, other okay substats to have on your piercing light if you can't get god tier rolls or you just can't get the roll to like pop up at all. Like in my case, for example, um, I would still recommend some kind of damage. So I would recommend any kind of elemental attack. Like in this case, I do have a fire attack, so I'm not like super pissed off about it because Hailey fourth ability will still apply whatever status effect your weapon has on it. So it's not like it's a complete use of damage. You still have a source of damage, and that damage still scales based off the amount of damage that you're doing. So, like, say for example, I hit like 100,000, or not 100,000. Let's say I hit like a million, right? A million damage on something, and I do like 10% fire attack or whatever. I'm gonna do like 100k fire attack, you know. So it's not bad. It's still really good to have. Um, Weak point damage is important because Hailey's passive ability, for those who don't know the way her passive works, this is, I think, the part that some people are confused about. At least I know some of my viewers are confused about this, is the distance. So Hailey gets a boost to weak point damage based on how far she is to the target that she's hitting. So it doesn't matter how close or how far she is for her regular damage. But if you're going for weak points and you want to instantly do massive weak point damage, which reason why Piercing Light's also just a better option for you is because the Piercing Light excels at weak point damage. Uh, you would technically hang back about 25 meters or more to get that 50% damage increase on top of your already insane damage buffs that you're going to get from all of her abilities caked into it. So this is why we want a weak point damage roll substat on our piercing light, because piercing light, like my piercing light currently is chilling at like what almost a 6x right now, a weak point damage. So it's pretty impressive. That's a lot of damage. Um, so that's why you want to get weak point damage, and I need people to understand that. If you're gonna just like hang in the back or whatever the case may be, or even if you aren't hanging in the back at all, but you still want to get that massive boost of damage. Again, weak point damage is the most consistent form of damage. For while bosses have weak points, that's easier for you to target. Because you're always gonna do that, kind of like a crit. It's like a free crit, you know. So getting weak point damage overall is just it's never going to hurt you. It's always going to benefit you for the most part, especially for piercing light. It's not going to be something that's going to be like, oh my god, my weapon sucks. uh Another substat that I would recommend, I spent way too long talking about that, I'm sorry, is crit rate. It's not important. This is the one of the more minor, more towards the end of least important stats, but it's still just a good stat overall to have, and rounds per magazine. The reason why I would still say crit rate is okay on the piercing light for a substat, if you can't get good rolls but you do roll crit rate and you're sitting on it for a little while, um, is because even when you do get Hailey to 100% crit ratio, bosses in this game do have critical resistance, right? So even though it says you have 100% crit rate, you aren't actually hitting 100% crit, if that makes sense. You are actually still doing less crit. So it's better to, stockpile up on crit to better your chances at consistently hitting crit rather than not doing so. Because say my weapon has an 80% crit rate ratio, right? And it stops at 80%, whatever the case may be, and then I shoot the boss with my weapon, it's not actually 80% crit chance. It's probably somewhere around 65% chance of me critting on that boss or enemy. And that's why, getting more crit doesn't really hurt. It's just more of like a quality of life thing, trying to maintain some form of consistency. So I wouldn't say it's a completely horrible stat to have. It's just one that ideally I wouldn't put over others, if that makes sense. I would replace it if I could. If you have the resources to replace it, by all means, I would do so and look for something more desirable, like again, like crit damage, weak point damage, firearm attack to colossus. But if you can't, and you don't have the resources right away, don't feel completely like horrible or anything like that because you have crit rate. It's not like it's completely horrible. It's just not fully ideal. That's all. Um, but let's move into Hailey's abilities really quickly. So I want to talk about her abilities, how they work, and how you're gonna utilize and set this up. I will also showcase more footage. I don't have a lot of footage right now, guys, because again, I haven't been gaming or playing, so I couldn't do my whole Hailey montage video that I wanted to do. But after I get done doing a whole TED talk here with you, I'll showcase some more gameplay and showcase how all this rotation and stuff like that works. I might even like cut a segment out or whatever, or do like a separate recording and hover over the video. I'm not sure I'm gonna do the format. Um, but sorry, that's my presets. Going into the Descendant modules here, let's look at her abilities. So her first ability, Cryo Round, this ability is actually really awesome, and this is an ability that you really want to pay attention to because this ability is basically what I call a primer. Now, if you don't know what the term primer means, it's a term from Warframe in which, like, whatever weapon or pet that you're using, you just have an outside source of, like, you have something giving you an outside source of extra damage, right? So it applies an effect onto an enemy. So then when you hit that enemy with whatever weapon or item it is that you're using, it does more damage. And that's exactly what cryo rounds does. So this weapon will automatically target like 9 targets. If there isn't 9 monsters in front of you, say I was just doing like a colossus fight and I was fighting a colossus, I would tag the colossus 9 times, applying 9 stacks of cryo, which gives you additional damage of 50%. So this is very, very, very important. You automatically apply flash freezing when you tag an enemy with cryo, which reduces their action per stack by 5%. So this is, again, really good against colossus and stuff like that. Now colossus unfortunately isn't 5%, it's 1%. So there's that. But you're still doing something to them. I kind of wish I had some kind of resistance strat, to be honest, but that'd be kind of OP. But it doesn't matter. Again, the importance of this though is that you're doing 50% additional damage. What I mean by that, sorry, I had a hiccup coming and I didn't want to do it over the mic, is you will do 50% more damage with all of these abilities. Literally. So you lose a stack. You'll lose a stack when Hailey uses a firearm attack. A firearm attack is considered her second ability and her fourth ability, as well as, just whenever you shoot your normal gun. That's it. So that's considered firearm attacks. So say I tag a colossus with cryo round, and then I switch to my second ability. This will do 50% more damage on impact, right? Than if I just shot it straight out the gate. So this is how you start setting up rotations with Hailey. You would always pop your third ability, Cold Fury. Cold Fury is very important to Hailey because this gives her flat critical hit increases. This gives you flat critical hit rate on your gun, flat critical skill rate, critical hit rate on Hailey herself, and you get more penetration, meaning that you can pierce multiple targets. You also get up to 16 stacks, so it's really nice. And on top of that, you get skill critical hit damage and firearm critical hit damage of 20%, similar to like Luna, although Luna's is 50%, but it's like similar to Luna in that sense. You know what I mean? When you get max stacks, and it's really easy to get her stacks. She only needs 16 stacks. So it's only like 16 seconds because you get a stack a second, right? So you'll be in full stacks in a matter of no time, which is super important to know. So you would pop the third ability at the start, and then whenever you're ready to fry a colossus, for example, you will tag them with the first ability, so that way you can get that 50% damage on top of your maxed out skill critical hit damage and firearm crit damage, as well as getting the increased crit rate so you can consistently hit those numbers. And you would either choose to hit them with Hailey's second ability first, if you really want to go that route, right? Or you could be like me and just use the fourth ability, Zenith, and you could just go straight at the weak points right off rip. So you can get all that big juicy chunk of damage, and you're most likely going to instantly stagger a boss like off rip and just dismantle them, and then you could finish them with Storm Snare if you really, really, really want to. So I'll showcase this again at some point in the video, so no worries. You'll all see this on YouTube, for sure. So let's talk about her modules and why I have it set up the way I have it set up. So I do have shot focus after spending like literally since day one playing this game and constantly infusing modules. I finally got shot focus. a while back, so that was pretty nice. This is really important because again, this is going to increase our piercing light's overall damage. We're trying to amplify our piercing light to its full capacity. 1 second, I'm sorry. Sorry, I had a coughing fit. Um, so you would want to get shot focus if possible. If you don't have shot focus, because I understand it's one of the hardest modules in the games to get, you're in luck. You're in luck because there is a quality of life mod I would recommend throwing in here, and that would be like skill insight. I don't have it in my kit, and I'll explain why you want skill insight later. Um, but let's just continue on with the rest of the modules for now for people who do have shot focus. I am running increased HP. I decided just to throw this on when I first started leveling it up, and I just kept it because I didn't feel the need to ever switch it out because I just have so much free space, right? So I left increased HP on. If you decide you want to run some other different HP survivability module, by all means, feel free to. I felt fine with increased HP. Let me see what other HP modules. I think there's one that increases your MP and HP simultaneously, right? You just don't get a big boost to HP? Or am I lying? Okay, no, this one just gives you more max MP and all that stuff, reduces your HP. I don't want to do that to my Hailey. If you do decide to run something like that, then I would definitely say get a component set that gives you a lot of HP to where you could feel comfortable doing that. But yeah, it doesn't really. I'm not really seeing. I mean, battle stamina isn't useful. Hailey isn't affected by skill duration, so this isn't useful. So yeah, just stick to the base HP that I'm using. That's literally it, right? Just stick to the base HP. Call it a day. Um, I'm running front lines because it's going to give me skill critical hit damage as well as skill critical hit rate. I'm trying to up my raw damage overall as much as possible on Hailey. So this is very important for Hailey, as well as boosting her skill critical hit ratio. So that way she can obviously achieve that 100% and I can have that consistent DPS. And then skill concentration, again, for more skill critical hit damage. I am using Glacial Syncytium, and the reason why I was using this is because, again, if you watch my video before, one of my YouTube videos, I was trying to teach people how to create their own builds, and I explained uh, how you never want to like just fully dive into one thing. You want to make sure that like you're dipping your toes in everything, so that way you how did I explain it? I explained it like you don't want to get diminishing returns, right? And obviously, I don't have any kind of chill skill power increases right now. I have all of my skill power modules that I could possibly have on, and skill power modifier is useless to Hailey. So there's no reason to throw a skill power modifier on her. So I threw Glacial Syncytium on to help boost her chill damage because, again, it's just more damage. And it also gives me critical hit resistance. So it makes it harder for bosses to also crit on me, which I find useful. And the reason why I find this useful is because obviously there's those scenarios and situations in which when you use her fourth ability, you have no movement. You are literally stationary. You are a stationary target. So I put Glacial Syncytium on as another form of tanking, if that makes sense. So when I'm in my fourth ability, not only am I getting more chill skill power, but I'm also giving myself more survivability. So if I am attacked while I'm in the middle of popping my fourth ability and stuff like that, I'm not getting completely fried because I have no form of crit resistance. Because bosses do a lot of crit damage, right? So I am reducing the amount of damage they do to me in this sense. And that's why I have Glacial Syncytium. 1 second again, but I'm having a coughing fit. Hold on. Terribly sorry about that, guys. Uh, and moving on to our next module, Dangerous Ambush. I think personally, Dangerous Ambush is the best module for like 90% of the cast inside this game that requires doing damage with their skills. And the reason why I say that is because when landing a skill attack while the enemy is not targeting you, your skill power is automatically increased by 24.9%. That's flat. Um, well, I shouldn't say it's flat because it doesn't really matter. Like your skill power isn't a percentage, right? So you get the gist, right? I say flat, but it is not really flat. I apologize. It's the wrong term to use against something like that. It's a good 24.9% being multiplied. That's all I'm saying. And then who cares? And then on skill attack against an immobilized enemy, skill power is increased by another additional 49.8%. So this is how you do like 20, 30 millions damage to enemies that are immobilized using like the second ability if you apply your damage rotation correctly. So if you properly apply your damage rotations, you will do a butt ton of damage. And I say butt ton because I can't say uh the F bomb on YouTube. So I say butt. Booty meat. Uh, anyways, so yeah, so this is very, 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 very important, guys. I would recommend Dangerous Ambush over any other module inside the game. I did at one point think about using Walk a Tight Rope, and the only reason why I thought about using Walk a Tight Rope over Dangerous Ambush at the time was sorry, one second. I am so sorry. Don't ever get sick. The only reason why I thought about using the walker tight rope at the time was because I was going to just dabble with the idea of um getting the 30% firearm attack and just seeing how high I can get my damage numbers up on the piercing light, so that way I could see how far her skill would multiply that just purely off the percentage, right? But due to how she works and everything like that, and how enemies just don't really do a lot of damage to me anyways, or don't get the opportunity to, it's just kind of like, this is useless. It's pointless. It's not like Glay, right? I wanted to try to just dabble around and walk a tight rope just to see what that would have been like. But no, realistically, the best one for her is just going to be Dangerous Ambush. Um, and then we have Singular Specialist on. Now, Singular Specialist, this is also just really good because this is going to give you like a slight boost in damage overall. I wouldn't say it's anything super crazy. It's like a little modifier in itself. But this one, I personally kept. Now, I would recommend replacing Singular Specialist and Glacial Syncytium with either Strong Mentality and Skill Insight. The reason why I would suggest potentially replacing these two modules, Strong Mentality is going to combat the negative that we have from our current component set. Because the current component set I'm using is a Slayer set, and I'll explain why when we get there. But that gives you like an increased skill cost of 15%. So Strong Mentality would reduce that, and it would get rid of that skill cost increase, just giving you nothing but a positive off the Slayer set and everything. So it's very, 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 very important to know that. So I would sacrifice either Glacial Syncytium, preferably Glacial Syncytium. If you don't care about the extra survivability, you can get rid of Chill Skill Power if you want to, and slap on Strong Mentality. If you don't mind losing 10% chill skill power for just more quality of life. Um, and then if you absolutely don't care at all, you could, like I said again, replace either that out with skill insight, right? So that way you have another better version of quality of life, which technically in turn will give you more damage if you are consistently hitting those crits nonstop with skill insight. So I would recommend switching these two out for your own personal needs if you feel the desire to. Preferably get Glacial Syncytium out first, then dive into this, but find out what makes you feel comfortable. Spear and Shield we're using because this is going to give us defense of 89.8% with skill power. Now, important note to make. The important note is if you don't have Spear and Shield, that is totally fine. You can also use Iron Will, which Iron Will is one I would also recommend. Or, sorry, not Iron Will. I apologize, guys. Iron Defense is what I was trying to say. Iron Defense. It is the same amount of defense. Now, this gives you skill power modifier and not just raw skill power. But the reason why it's not bad is because this is going to help you combat the negative that you're getting from shot focus, even though some people may look at that minus 15% as like negligible, like it doesn't really matter too much. I'll be honest, I tested my damage numbers with Iron Defense and Spear and Shield, and there wasn't too much of a difference, anyways, in terms of how much of the damage changed. And that's because I just have so much skill power coming from so many other sources that it just doesn't really hurt me too much, right? So there's a difference, just not too much of a difference, I will say, because of just how high her skill power modifier is. That it just helps, right? So if you don't have Spear and Shield, but you do have Iron Defense, or maybe you have one upgrade and you're just lacking Kuiper and you can't get the other one upgraded right now. Thankfully, they're both the same polarity, so you could just switch them out whenever you want for whatever you feel comfortable with. So that is also something I would leave up to the viewer's hands, aka yours. Again, I'm using Spear and Shield just for the extra skill power. For a while, I was using Iron Defense to combat the negative of shot focus, but I'm using Spear and Shield just because just more skill power. Like I genuinely don't care. Then moving on to the next one, this is going super long and I'm so sorry, is skill power or maximize skill, because this is going to give me 87.6% skill power increase. This is just better than power increase. And then I have cooldown of 50%. Now, that's a negative. That's not a positive, by the way. So for anyone who might be a little bit confused and be looking at that and thinking first glance like, "Oh my god, you get faster cooldown too?" Like, no, it's longer cooldowns. And the reason why I have this, I'm going to explain it because people are probably going to look at this and question, like, what the hell am I doing? Is the way Hailey's fourth ability works. This, in my opinion, is I built Hailey purely around her fourth ability because her fourth ability technically does more damage in DPS than her second ability. Her second ability is more like a speed run if you can actually hit that 10, 20 mil. However, you won't hit 10, 20 mil on every single. Well, I can consistently hit 15, 11, 15 million on most bosses. But as far as like hitting like 20 plus million, it's not always going to be 20 plus million. I can tell you that right now. Like I can hit 20 mil and higher, a little bit higher, but it just isn't always going to be that number, is what I'm trying to say. Especially depending on what boss you're hitting, how much defense they have, and all that stuff, yada, yada, yada. So, and this is just a one shot done thing. This weapon right here, the you can increase how many shots she has, and this will do basically damage numbers similar. Be right back, guys. I gotta pause. I'm gonna do a cut on the video, and then it's gonna cut in because I gotta answer this. I'm sorry. Sorry about that. The whole family's sick, so I had to answer the phone call and go and check on the fam. But I am back. Finishing from where we last left off. I was talking about her fourth ability and why I have so much like skill cooldown. The reason it doesn't bother me too much is because like technically, this weapon does more damage than this weapon, right? Like on average, like you're probably hitting around 10 million. Like some enemies that aren't like crazy resistant and stuff like that, you'll do like 20 plus million on, and that's pretty cool, right? But in like Colossus fights, it's not always going to be 20 million. If you're doing like 5 million a shot here, and say you have like 4 shots, then you're doing basically the same amount of damage that this is. But because of how her fourth ability works, if you add um magazine modules onto like whatever weapon is that you decide to use and stuff like that, you can get like 7, 8 shots on the gun. And then you'll be doing more damage than this, technically. Uh More consistently, I'll say too. Like, right, even if you aren't doing the 50% damage rotation increase on it. So you'll be pretty good. If you build around the force. So that's why I have maximized skill on. I don't mind the skill cooldown. Also, it's another thing to note too that I didn't mention because I'm just all over the place right now is If you don't consume all of her bullets, so say you have 10 shots, right? Just say magically you have 10 shots and you fire 5 shots, your cooldown is already reduced by a flat 50%. So instead of it being like, we'll say, so the math's easier for me right now. Instead of it being like 30 seconds, it would be like 15 seconds, and then I'll get my ult back, right? And then if it was like, uh, if I only used one bullet, or the case may be, and then I canceled my ultimate for whatever reason because like either the boss got immediately frenzied, or, um, you know, maybe I popped my ability too late, all that kind of stuff. Like, things happen, right? Or you get knocked out of it, whatever the case may be. And you only use like one shot. Um, your cooldown is basically instant. So it doesn't matter really for cooldown unless you want to spam her first ability and constantly always have the primer up. And you kind of want to use this ability every once in a while. That would be the only thing that would make me uh say like don't use maximize skill. You could probably slap on something like um chill master if you want it to, or chill specialist even. And the reason why I would probably recommend chill specialist or chill master is because obviously you're gonna have that skill power increase, but you're also gonna get the chill skill power. So again, that gives you that multiplier of having damage sources coming from all angles. Uh, and you already have dangerous ambush, just giving you so much skill power too from when you are like hitting an enemy that's not targeting you and whatnot. So if you feel like this is overkill and you don't really kill too much for maximize skill, and again you're trying to go for like a quality life approach and all that stuff, and you don't have glacial syncytium and all that jazz, right? Then I would recommend switching maximize skill out for chill master or chill specialist. But this is a must, for sure. So I'll let you guys play around with the builds how you feel, but that would be my recommendation and how I would piece things in depending on what you want, what you need, and what you deem as uh, fit for your playstyle and your build specifically. And then the last thing is just emergency measures again for skill critical hit rate and more importantly, more skill critical hit damage. So that's our Hailey's modules in a nutshell. So now let's look at Piercing's Light's modules and what build I'm running for Piercing Light. So looking at my mod build here, I am running action and reaction for just more raw damage. I'm running rifling reinforcement again for just more raw damage. And then concentration priority, I am using this because it's crit damage. So this will also give me more raw damage, especially because it's going to automatically crit. And this does apply to my fourth ability Zenith. So I have that on. I am running Focus Fire. And the reason why I'm using Focus Fire is because it gives me crit damage, but also more importantly, it's giving me weak point damage, which again, as explained earlier in the video, why weak point's important, especially for Hailey, and Piercing Light, which makes her and Piercing Light like one of the best combos to have inside the game. Uh, this one is just very strong because you want that overall weak point and crit damage, right? Because that's just raw damage that's consistent, and you'll always just like melt whatever it is you're shooting. Um, then we got better concentration on as well for more crit damage. I am using expand weapon charge. The reason why I'm doing this is because again, like I said, with the 49% to rounds per magazine, you will get more ammo, so more shots on her fourth ability. Uh, and then action. Oh, sorry about that. We have weak point sight for obvious reasons. Concentration stabilizer to balance out the negative of action and reaction, but also most importantly, the firearm critical hit damage. And then we have weak point expansion, which, in my opinion, is her best in slot because of the fact that she's doing so much weak point damage. But If, hear me out, one other module I would recommend over weak point expansion, right? If you uh if you want more damage too, or another form of like a lot of damage, is dopaminergic. Dopaminergic activate. So this one on weak point hit, you'll increase your firearm critical hit rates as well as your firearm critical hit damage. So I don't have. Oh, actually, I do have dopaminergic maxed out because I have it for my afterglow. What am I talking about? So dopaminergic on weak point hit, the firearm critical hit rate goes up to 45.5%, and the firearm critical hit damage is at 59.3%. So this would actually be really good for Hailey as well. If you decide to um, slap this onto her. If you don't want to use weak point expansion, this would also be a good option, in my opinion. I just think weak point expansion is the best in slot. Now, I did have on rounds per magazine in this slot right here, but I decided to take it off because I don't actually need that many shots on Hailey. Um, now, again, going back to what I was talking about before, um, I was talking about how like if you don't use all of her bullets, you instantly get her cooldown back. So technically, you could use this as like a cooldown mod, right? And you could max out a bunch, like max out like all of this if you really wanted to. You'll be nerfing your weak point damage slightly if you decide to run magazine compulsive. Um, or you can use concentrate support ammo because this one will just give you more firearm critical hit damage and rounds per magazine. And again, like if you were to max this out and use this in that free slot that I'm giving you, um, you won't use all of your bullets on Hailey. So then canceling out the ult, you'll be fine. So it'll be good for group play if you decide to do group play where bosses are stronger and you're not really gonna like one phase them all the time consistently. So throwing this in would probably be really nice, just so that way you can get that ultimate faster as like a cooldown. But if you don't want to do that, because you just don't feel a need, like I did, um, I was just messing around with it and I didn't really care too much. I was just shredding bosses even inside group play for a while. So I decided to put on a an elemental mod because like I said, Hailey's fourth ability will do whatever element you're doing. So I left you a free slot to decide what's best for you, without needing to format it. And then on top of that, it is just also good because depending on what colossus it is that you're fighting, you can just choose which element is best against them and then just get that bigger boost to them, already. So that's why I decided to say screw it. I'll just leave expand weapon charge unless again you decide I might honestly take expand weapon charge off and replace it with concentrate support ammo just for more firearm critical hit damage plus the rounds per magazine, and then still have this on, right? So more raw damage on top of, you know, more damage. So I might do that uh shortly, but I'll let you guys decide. So moving off of the rest of the build, as far as component sets go, and we're going to finally be done talking about Hailey and her modules. For component sets, I am using the Slayer set, and the reason why I'm using the Slayer set is because the Slayer set gives you more rounds per magazine. So this plays a role into how much ammo I have on Hailey and her fourth ability, as well as it gives me some more skill power. So the skill power increases 26.1% is really nice on her, and then the skill cost obviously is the negative, and this is why in the beginning I was talking about using strong mentality to combat the negative of your component set, so that way you don't have to worry about running out of MP, and you can keep her buff up longer so you can consistently stay inside your DPS phases and stuff like that and actually be able to do all of your rotations comfortably without struggling in that sense or needing that quality of life exchange. Um, so I think Slayer set is one of her best in slots when it comes to bossing as of right now. I am curious though. I think I have just a headcanon theory that the Frozen Heart set, yeah, Frozen Heart. So I had to make sure I keep saying Frozen Memory. I think this set would probably be a good set in the future for Hailey, based on her Transcendent modules. And I think this one specifically was made for Hailey. I just have this weird headcanon theory that that Nexon has all this content already pre-made, and they're just unlocking it and just making us think they're working on this stuff because there's some things in this game that just make absolutely no sense. And then when they rolled out like Peacemaker and stuff like that, it like the nerfs and the scaling and all that stuff, like looking at those weapons or whatever, it's just like they just seem like the weapons how the weapons were when the game first came out before they did like the overhaul, right? So, uh, so it just seems like everything's already preloaded into this game. Cause Frozen Heart, like I remember I did a Viesta video talking about this, and I'm yapping. Um, but like Viesta doesn't really do anything to apply buffs to enemies, so it just made no sense for this set to exist when she was the only chill character in the game. And I have this theory that Hailey's Transcendent module is gonna apply around her third ability, and it's gonna probably potentially give people like share the buff of the crit rate with everyone, right? Kind of like Frena's like body armor kind of thing. Uh, so that's just my theory. I could be wrong. Um, but again, my theory. And then this would give you that firearm weak point damage and firearm critical hit rate and firearm or skill critical hit rate, right? Like it just makes so much more sense. So this would probably be a good set in the future. So I would say if you have it, just farm a set up and hold on to it just in case. If you decide you want to play with like a support group Hailey build in the future, um, if you decide to just go off my head canon, because like it's just a theory, right? I don't know. I'm just making shit up and I'm just theorizing on this one. But going back to actual components that I would recommend for Hailey though, I would definitely recommend next if you don't want to run the Slayer set, it would be the Polar Knight set. The Polar Knight set is an okay set. It's not horrible. Um, it'll increase your firearm critical crit damage, as well as skill crit damage for a short period of time, like I think 5 seconds. Uh, but it's at a set chance though, and it stacks up to 10 times. So every time you apply frostbite or cold to an enemy, you get you'll get a firearm critical hit damage increase and a skill crit damage increase as well. And luckily, based off how much you're priming enemies with cryo rounds, you'll get those buffs. So and I have used it and it does work for the most part. It's just not consistent enough. Because again, the duration of it is such a short period of time, and then trying to get max stacks all the time is also just really hard. You don't need max stacks. It's just a 30% chance to get a stack is all, and the stack is only lasting 5 seconds. So tagging like a colossus with it and stuff like that. It's just kind of one of those things where it's like either it's gonna be really good or really bad. It just depends on how lucky you are sometimes, and that's the part that sucks. Um, but the numbers that you do hit do go crazy. They are pretty if you do get lucky enough to get a lot of stats. It's just not crazy consistent. But so I would say Polar Knight would probably be her second best if you are looking for like a bossing and if you have good pieces on it. Um, that would be one I would recommend next. The next set combo I would recommend would be a two-piece glacial and um a two-piece glacial and a two-piece acrobat. That will give you 8% chill, at least with the glacial, and it'll also just give you a 1.7% skill power with a 2.8% firearm attack increase, boosting your overall damage and how much damage Hailey is going to be doing overall. So I would recommend that one as well. That would be the third best option in my opinion. But I would only recommend those options uh, again if you get good uh, substats on them. ideal substats you're gonna want always gonna be your survivability substats. You're always gonna want like your HP, your defense, but then you're also gonna want your utility. So your utility would be, in this case, MP recovery in combat and MP recovery out of combat. So that way, you always have a source of MP coming into Hailey, and you can always have good uptime on all of your skills and abilities, and you're not, you know, fighting for mana orbs the whole time and missing out on damage rotations because you just don't have MP. So I would definitely look for roles like that. If you can get an HP, defense, and then, or whatever the stats are on there, you can get your HP defenses and in your MP recovery in combat and out of combat. I would definitely recommend those pieces hands down over everything else. Um, just so you always have Hailey fed and sustained and you don't struggle or feel like you just aren't doing anything at the end of the day, right? So prioritize those stats. And then lastly, worst case scenario, and I say this is the worst case scenario, only because it's a full purple set, um, is a 4-piece battle aesthetic set. And this will give you more skill critical hit rate. Again, so you could sacrifice skill insight on your in your Descendant module setup if you want it to, because you'll have just enough to reach that 100% a little bit more consistently as well, on top of like all the other mods that I left. And you can run a glacial to get the boost there. Um, and then you could probably also, since you're not running the Slayer set, right? You don't need strength and mentality, so you can keep so you can keep singular specialists on, and then you can use 4-piece battle aesthetics, because then it'll give you minus skill cost, and it'll give you a little bit increase of 4% raw skill power. So this will make it a little bit more comfy. The drawback to this is, though, because it is a purple set, you are gonna be lacking a little bit in the defense category, so you're not gonna have like a crazy amount of survivability, but it doesn't matter at the end of the day if everything's dead. And then two, another drawback to it is you won't be doing like a crazy butt ton of damage that like all the other builds are going to be doing. You're going to be doing a lot of damage, but you're not going to be doing that kind of damage, if that makes sense. You're not going to be doing like 20 million damage, but you are going to still be doing like 10 million, 8 million damage still, regardless of, those buffs. So, or component set. So don't feel like it's completely horrible. Hailey is just so naturally strong. You can actually get away with doing that and still feel really comfortable and build her to where you feel comfortable overall. Recording. So another thing I almost forgot is Hailey's reactor. This is very important. Obviously, you're gonna want to go out and go farm you a frozen singular reactor. I think this week is actually her reactor is in rotation right now. And if I remember correctly, is currently up in the fortress section. You're gonna look for a piercing light reactor because we are using piercing light as our main weapon. Um, the main thing you're going to want to prioritize on your reactor is going to be skill critical hit damage and additional skill attack when attacking the colossus, because that actually is another form of skill power. So what I mean by that is, like, it's not like, oh, you're just doing 2,000 more damage, right? It's like 2,000 more skill power on top of, like, your 11,000 skill power, right? um or at least that's just the way of thinking about it. So it gets added to like the equation to make you do more damage, and that's why it's so important. Some other notable substats I would look for if you don't really care too much. I mean, this is God roll, but ones that I would say you could settle for and be okay with would be again, skill critical hit rate. That way you don't have to worry about putting skill insight onto Hailey in terms of your modules. You can just focus on damage modules there, because you'll have skill critical hit rate on your reactor. So that's perfect. Um, I would always say prioritize attack 2 colossus, just because attack 2 colossus is obviously like nothing in this game requires the amount of damage that Hailey's gonna be doing other than Colossus, right? So, um, you would want that because it's just the only other one that just makes sense. So skill critical hit rate, skill critical hit damage, attack to Colossus, skill cost even if you want to go for like a skill cost one, that would also benefit you a lot. Just because then you like again depending on what component set you're running and stuff, you don't have to worry about the drainage too much. Even without it, it's still good. Um, or skill cooldown if you're trying to make a build revolving around Hailey's second ability. That way you could spam that more often, as well as her first ability and having that pretty much on like 100% uptime. So you can just always keep priming enemies nonstop with that. So you could do like a weird reactor where it's like skill cost and skill cooldown and like it'll be super weird to some people, but I could see how someone would like, manipulate that and use that to a build that feels comfortable and like create a new form of playstyle for you, right? In which you can technically spam the abilities more and make up for the lack of damage numbers that other people are doing in one go, where you're just doing it like basically more consistently in more intervals, basically giving you an edge in the long term, right? So if bosses get like ridiculous HP, maybe in the long term, you'll just be able to just keep just pumping out nonstop damage, nonstop damage, nonstop damage, just because you know of how your abilities is set up on a reactor. So that's all. Not anything super crazy, but that's what I'll prioritize in my opinion for my build specifically. Though, skill, critical hit damage, and attack to colossus are going to be the main things you want to prioritize with your Hailey. So that is my Hailey guide. That is all of my advice and tips for Hailey. I hope this video helps. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it very educational. And again, I'm sorry I had lost my voice and I couldn't properly get a video out. It's just running on that deadline. I know people are probably getting everything out there, so I'm trying to get this information out there quickly as possible to help out. But if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, subscribe, and come support me over on twitch.tv/renderp, where you can come and hang out with me, ask me anything. Maybe you want to just like kick it up, farm some time, kill some things, whatever the case may be. I'm always down. Um, I'm feeling better now, so I'll definitely be getting more videos out there. I would talk more about the inversion reinforcement because I don't see a lot enough people talking about this. Um, so a quick side note, I do want to make for my Hailey build. Now that I am back in gaming again, I am going to farm and finish this off. An idea I have in mind is going to be for recovery. Uh, I want to unlock selective neural stimulation for Hailey at some point because you get one of the following three effects every 60 seconds, and this is awesome because this will always give her MP recovery. So this just makes it to where I again have good sustained MP at all times, and it's just based off her HP. So I'm super fine with that, and this is something I'm looking for next. So if you are still watching this video by the time you got to this point, I would recommend the neural stimulation. This it is something I would definitely recommend. I think this is phenomenal for Hailey because again of the MP recovery, and it's just free. There's no negative to this whatsoever. You're just getting free MP. Um, so yeah, I would 100% try to unlock this as fast as possible if you are a Hailey main. And that's it, man. Thanks for watching, guys. I love you. I'll catch you in the next one.